Hey, and welcome back! Holy Priest has been reworked in 11.1 and by all accounts the spec opens up to more playstyles, but additional tuning and changes are still required. If healing does indeed make a comeback in the new season, is this the comeback of Holy Priest in Mythic Plus? We all know that Holy's biggest bane in Season 1 was its poor AOE healing, and this primarily in Mythic Plus. Sure, the spec could push up to plus 14s, but due to its reactive playstyle based on pumping big spot heals on each dum-dum, meant it was kind of the last healer to be considered when pushing. Its so-called prep for high damage intake times is weak, and you could never really rely on 5-man healing. The rework tries to address that by removing things like Holy Word Salvation and Circle of Healing and putting an emphasis on Prayer of Healing. Capstones like Lightweaver now also affect Prayer of Healing, and not only that, you now go from 2 charges to 4 charges, making the so-called prep window a bit more reliable, since if you know that a heavy group damage phase is on the loom, you can cast flash heals to get up to 4 charges of Lightweaver and be ready with 4 juiced up Prayer of Healing spells. Giga heals and giga rewards for our patrons, which are the real healers of Marcelian Online's damage intake. Patreon.com/MarcelianOnline is the place to join these champions because on top of keeping the lights on here, you get access to bloopers caught during the recording of our videos, Patreon exclusive podcasts, early access videos without ads or sponsors, and some amazing 4K wallpapers with your mains and your transmogs. Look at these beauties. You can have one too. Just head on over to patreon.com/MarcelianOnline and check out the stuffs. And if that isn't enough, the new talent Divinity will now provide Apotheosis with an extra 3 instant heals or Prayer of Healing, while also adding a 25% buff to them. Not to mention that we still retain talents that provide synergy with Prayer of Healing, and in theory, with everything mentioned so far, Prayer should be the main way to heal 5-mans, right? Well, it's still not there, throughput-wise. Even with all the changes, tuning still needs to be done to actually make it a reliable 5-man heal, because from where we tested it, it was piss poor numbers and we had to go back to the old big spot heals. Now, this is in no way a criticism of what they are trying to achieve here, but they really need to push Prayer of Healing's numbers somehow. A flat giga buff will make it the de facto AOE heal in raids also, which is not ideal in terms of their philosophy for the spec, but maybe some changes in the existing talents could do the trick. I am no game designer, but what I can tell you for sure is that currently on the PTR you still go for the old playstyle in Holy in order to keep your team alive, and this just kills all the changes Blizz are going for here. Apotheosis feels indeed like a very powerful cooldown, and this is not to say that previously it wasn't. You now just get a lot more feedback during its window. First of all, the tier set heavily buffs Apotheosis, having your Sanctify and Serenity casts applying insurance for 10 seconds on their respective targets, and all of your healing is increased by 1% per insurance. Playing Archon already has great synergy with Apotheosis, providing even more throughput, and just underneath it you have a brand new choice node between Divinity, which I mentioned earlier, and Eternal Sanctify that will extend Apotheosis by 1.5 seconds for each holy word used. We always tended to go for Divinity because having 3 instant heals juiced up by Lightweaver felt so good, and because we kept going back to the old playstyle. It made much more sense, but if they actually make Prayer somehow decently viable in terms of throughput, going for Eternal Sanctify might be the play, because you would make use of your holy words to juice up Prayer through talents like Prayer Circle and Resonant Words. One of the great changes in talents is that they moved the former capstone restitution way earlier in the tree, making it an almost guaranteed pick if you know you're gonna die a lot. And you are going to die a lot on the PTR with the current tuning, and the fact that you didn't hit the like button yet. Save yourself, hit the like button to tell the YouTube overlords that we're doing at least something right. It's free and it helps us out so much. Now, in case you didn't know, Restitution will get you back to life after your Spirit of Redemption ends. You enter the Spirit of Redemption when you die. But not only that, you can basically get rezzed with full HP based on the amount of healing you've done up to that point. The catch with this is that you cannot enter Spirit of Redemption for 10 minutes after you rest. Now, somewhat in its place, we get the old Dragonflight tier set as a new capstone, Lasting Words, where Serenity applies 12 seconds of renew to its targets. Since we're on the subject, another big push with this rework is actually going for utilizing a lot more renews. Traditionally, this spell has been Giga Weak and you barely ever use it, but now they really want you to use it as part of your rotation. There are plenty of talents that synergize with Renew, and realistically, it feels really expensive to get all of them without losing much of your core power. Not to mention that Oracle is the hero talent specialization that favors Renew, and I don't know about you, but I cannot give up on my Archon. That being said, they want to push value on casting Renew, even with a standard talent build, because you still can get talents like Benediction and Renewed Fate to juice it up. Not to mention the new talent Empowered Renew, which enables the spell to reduce the cooldown of Sanctify by an additional 6 seconds and will heal for 60% more, making it a 12-second cooldown. It's not ideal, and personally, I don't like the Renew push, especially at a 12-second cooldown, plus you never were a healing over time type of healer anyway. Given the fact that we really don't vibe with the Disc Priest rework, and believe me, we always love Discipline Priest, Holy takes the spot as one of the main candidates for healing in the next season. We never hated on Holy, but we always preferred a more proactive playstyle versus a reactive, oh shit, playstyle. Not to mention that Holy had a lot of button bloat, while this was super efficient. With what they are trying to deliver on the Holy Priest's rework, with the pruning, the Prayer of Healing push, the power bump in Apotheosis, yeah, it's on the positive track, but there are still glaring issues with the spec that need to be addressed. First off, we have the shittiest mobility in the whole spectrum of healers, and I was truly hoping for a talent to address this. Not to mention that if you get rooted or slowed, there are literally 0 ways of addressing that as a Holy Priest, and no, Angelic Feather doesn't make the cut. It gets tedious to be hard casting stuff with no mobility, especially with all that is happening in dungeons nowadays. Feather is nice, but again, does nothing for roots and slows. Even though I mentioned I didn't like the Disc Priest rework, when compared, Disc is much more useful in dungeons, and this does boil down to giving Holy some sort of utility. Anything, please! The minimal at least. Both priest healers have no kicks. That's okay, we rely on DPS and tanks for that. We don't have any option to dispel poisons, but Disc does have more damage, Dome for damage reduction, etc. I'm not trying to homogenize all specs here, but there is no other way of saying this. Holy doesn't bring anything useful or unique for Mythic Plus. I'm sure they could come up with something. The Warcraft Priest Discord and the Holy Priest feedback forums are full of ideas. Flame from the future here, back at you with some updates. Holy Priest had its Prayer of Healing buffed by 20% again, and wouldn't you know it, it's still dog poo. Marcelian tried to make it work the last couple of days together with some renewed talents and Lasting Words as a capstone, since he would use a lot more Sanctifies due to Prayer Circle and Resonant Words talents, but just wasn't able to top the team, man! Not even with Lightweaver stacks and Apotheosis up. That means basically the most juiced up and instant 3 Prayer of Heals. And it still wouldn't do the trick. He even went for the Desperate Times talent, dropping off capstones like Divine Image and Lasting Words just to see if Prayer of Healing would feel more impactful, at least when people dropped below 50% HP. Nope. Sure, there were some minor nerfs to Lightweaver, Trail of Light, and Dispersing Light, but even with those, the old spot heal playstyle still performed, if you could call it that, the best in dungeons. Dropped Prayer of Healing, dropped Lasting Words, no Desperate Times, and just got back to Divine Image for some awesome replicated heals, and also back to Burning Vehemence for more damage with Holy Fire. So yeah, Prayer of Healing is still not it, chief. All in all, it's looking good, but it's not enough, so if you are not convinced on picking up healing in Season 2, maybe stick to melee DPS and check out here who are the most fun so far in patch 11.1. We tried all of them on the PTR and had some actual surprises. Click it now.